Hello everyone, it's Iceland here. So I'm filming my August wrap-up and my September TBR. To start off with, I want to thank the 7 people who have subscribed to the channel. I started this channel pretty much as fun and a hobby for me. I certainly didn't think anyone would view the videos, let alone take time out of their day to like them or even bother subscribing. So the fact that 7 of you have liked what I've had to say enough that you have subscribed, thank you very much. I can't really say a whole lot more on that. You know who you are, but yeah, so that's all I can really say on that. Just thank you. That's not really much else, and I'm not going to get too rambly. So I am going to move on now to my August wrap-up. I actually did not read a lot in August, so there's not a whole lot here. I will start off with I participated in 2 readathons, so my goal for readathon, at least one readathon a month, has been more than met this month, and that was Dewey's 24-hour reverse-a-thon and the series Crackdown. I read, for both those readathons, they kind of coincided together. I had the same TBR, so I read Rook by Daniel O'Malley, and I read Firefight by Brandon Sanderson. Rook by Daniel O'Malley started off incredibly strong for me. I really was enjoying it till about the last quarter of the book. Then I found myself struggling to get through it. It seemed like it was starting to get a little repetitive and roundabout. But it ended okay, enough that I think I'm definitely going to read the second one, which I do have. As for Firefight by Brandon Sanderson, that's his YA trilogy. I just want to separate that from his other works because compared to his other works, I don't think it's worth your time, honestly. The first book, Steelheart, was very, very good, and it was actually my introduction into Brandon Sanderson, and actually is what got me wanting to read his other adult fantasy works. And now that I've read the second book of that trilogy, and I kind of dabbled in the first couple chapters of the third, I do think adult fantasy is his strength as an author. So if you like his adult fantasy, if you want something that's kind of just okay, something to blow an afternoon away and just not really care much about what you're reading, then his Reckoner's trilogy, his YA trilogy, is probably good for you. I certainly didn't enjoy the second book at all, and what I've read of the third, I'm not sure I'm going to complete it. I have put the third on my maybe shelf, and I'll see how I feel about that later. So that's all I can really say about that one. I only finished 2 other actual novels this month, and that was The Turning by Francine Prose. This has got to be one of the strangest books I've ever read. It was okay. It was entertaining enough that I finished it, but it's written through a bunch of letters, and I think it was marketed as a horror, like a teen horror book, but it was just weird, and not weird in a nice way, like not weird in a way that, you enjoy, just weird, and I'm not even really sure if there's a word for it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't recommend this. I mean, I finished it, so I didn't DNF it. It's not that bad, but I'm not really going to recommend picking it up. I think the writing style had a big way to do with it. I think if it hadn't been written in the form of like letters and had been written more like an actual novel, it might have been way more entertaining and maybe easier to understand. I mean, it's not long. It's only 200 40 pages. Maybe it was length. Maybe it could have done with being stretched out a little bit and a little bit more explained. I'm still not totally sure what happened in this book. But yeah, so that was the other novel. And then the final novel was my big book of the month, which I have yet to remove my bookmark because I actually ended up primarily absorbing this through audiobook. So I did move my bookmark, but you know what, let's do that right now and take the bookmark out and not confuse myself. So The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I had a hard time starting off with it, and about 3 chapters in, I realized I had the audiobook for this. So I'm not even sure when I bought the audiobook, but I did. So I started listening to the audiobook while simultaneously reading this book, physical copy, or when I was in my car and couldn't actually have the book in hand. And my favorite format for this story so far is the audiobook. So I'm probably going to go get the audiobook for the other 2 that are out, which are The Mime Order and The Song Rising, I believe. There's little pictures on the back here, so I had to look at them. So I'm definitely going to probably do that because I really got into this story. I really got into these worlds and characters through the audiobook. And I think I definitely want to read the other 2, and I think I'm going to have to get the audiobooks for them as well. So yeah, I was expecting a little bit more of a hard sci-fi. I'm not really sure why. When I went into it, I thought that, but I did, and I was pleasantly surprised by the mix of kind of sci-fi and fantasy that this thing has. So that was my big book for August. I got through it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I definitely am going on with the other books. Then I have digital copies of a manga series, which I actually ended up going back to and binge reading this month. I read 12 volumes, and that is The Black Butler by Yana Toboso, which has to do with a story of, well, there's lots of plots, but the main story is this young earl. It's set in 1890s England. I believe he's about 14, so he's a kid. Anyway, he makes a deal with a demon for a revenge pact, and the story is just following kind of their story, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. I read the first volume a couple of years ago, and I loved it, and I'm not really sure why I never picked up any of the other volumes, but I didn't, and then I just happened to think about it, so I went and I binge bought everything that's out, and I binge read the first 12 volumes, so I'm thoroughly enjoying that one, and that's probably going to be my on again, off again read. That's what mangas are for me. I do read them on occasion, and usually the ones I pick up I enjoy, but they're kind of my, I want to read something, like right now, 100 pages or whatever in an hour or whatever it is. So that's August. That's what I did. I binge read manga and read 3 books I was not pleased on and 1 book I enjoyed. So that was it. Jumping into September, video's getting a little long, so I'm trying not to be so rambly. A little bit more of an ambitious TBR. We'll see. I'm terrible at sticking to TBRs, but this is my plan so far. Fall is usually a time when I have more reading time, so maybe I'll actually get through some of these. I've already started one. I started it yesterday. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not really sure how. I'm enjoying the world. I'm enjoying the characters. This has been on my TBR for a while. It's actually been on a couple of TBR videos, and I keep not picking it up. The Royal Bastards by Andrew. I think you say it Schwartz. So this is basically about a crew of illegitimate children to this Western lord, and they've gotten into some shenanigans. There's this Western province, I guess, was its own kingdom at one point, and then it was conquered like 100 years ago or 150 years ago or something. And now the current leader is starting up a rebellion, but his illegitimate children and that of his friends, I guess, common thing in their kingdom. This is something that's in their society, is that, if they don't have legitimate children, they can, claim illegitimate children and things like that. I'm not very far in, so I'm still a little confused on how it all works. Anyway, they are loyal to the king, who is the only king they've ever known. So it's put them now, the part I'm at is it's put them at odds with their parents, and there's been some attempted assassinations, so now they're on the run. So far it's gearing up to be a good story. I don't know if it's going to be the most perfect thing in the world. I don't know if it's going to be the most epic thing in the world, but its premise has definitely got my attention, so I'll continue on with that one. Then I've got my big book of the month, which I chose out of my jar, and it's The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I haven't heard a whole lot about this one other than that there's supposedly a movie, according to the front of the book. I'm sure there is. I pay very little attention to news and TV and trailers and stuff. It's just I don't watch a lot of TV. It's not my jam. But yeah, so I'm not really sure. Other than that, I believe this has to do with psychics of some type, or people with like some type of superpowers. So that's my big book for the month that I will definitely try and get through, because that's my goal, one big book a month. So, and if for some reason I have to DNF that, I'll choose another. But yeah, so that's that one. Then I chose not Even Bones by Rebecca. I think you pronounce it Schaefer. Which this is a little bit, I believe, of a fantasy. It has to do with a girl whose mom is like a body part broker, if you want to say, I believe. She basically takes bodies and sells the parts off. And the bodies are like supernatural things. So it's about, I guess, the story of the girl whose mom does that. So, not really exactly sure, but that one definitely intrigued me. So I figured I would pick it up off my shelf finally. And if you've been following any of my videos, you're probably going to have seen this book pop up a few times. The Death of Mrs Westaway. I keep being intrigued by this one, and I keep not picking it up. So this is probably going to be my next read after Royal Bastards, just because trying to get the glare off the lettering. It's been on my TBR a very long time. It's been in several of these videos, I think. So yeah, that's definitely one to try and get to. Same with this next one, which is Crimson Bound, which I believe this is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, I want to say. I'm not exactly sure. I believe it is. I know the first one, Cruel Beauty, was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I read that a few years ago and thoroughly enjoyed it. So I figured I'd pick this one up as soon as it came out, because I was like, oh, I remember the first one and I really enjoy it. I never did pick it up. I know it's been on several of my videos, several of my readathon TBRs. I have not caught to it. So I figured, why the heck not? Rather than putting it back on the shelf, I'll just keep it out, and maybe I'll actually read it. It's got an interesting premise, and I like fairy tale retellings sometimes. So yeah, there's that one. Then I got The Heart of Iron. I believe this is a full-on sci-fi. It's a YA. It's by Ashley Poston. from what I understand, is this. It's about a girl. She's in space. She's got this android that she's in love with, or is falling in love with, and I guess I guess they're fugitives together. They harvest like illegal metals and stuff, salvagers, I'm assuming. So that's the next one. I try and keep myself pretty blind on books, so I don't have much more to say. Then, second to last, and maybe even the last, we'll see how the reading of the last book goes, is These Rebel Waves by Sarah Rosh. This is a YA pirate story. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I believe it's a pirate gang and they hook up with, this has magic and that it looks like it's a bit of a mix of a fantasy. This was totally a cover buy for me. I knew a little bit about it when I first picked it up, but I mean, yeah, that says it all. Then, oh my gosh, this monster, this beast, this thing that has been sitting beside my bed for like 3 months, that I think I've read like a part of it. Another Samantha Shannon book, Priory of the Orange Tree. I bought it by cover. I bought it because I'd heard about it online. I'd heard how good it was. I have struggled so hard with this book, and not just because of its size. I mean, it's a monster, it's a beast, but the writing in that, I've struggled really hard. So now that I know from my experience with Bone Season that her writing transfers really well to audiobook, I may try and pick the audiobook of this one up to do kind of what I did with Bone Season, where I listened to the audio and then read the book at the same time. And maybe I will enjoy it more. If I can't get through it, or at least start to enjoy it this month, I'm probably going to DNF it. I don't really want to, because I mean the story sounds amazing from the inside cover, and but I just something about it. I just am having a really hard time with it. So I'm going to try and do a bit of reading, try and do the audiobook, and see if I can get my way through it and how I like it at that point. But yeah, that's the last book of the month that I'll see where I can get with that one. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough. This video is long enough. I'm going to end it here. So yeah, I guess that's it for now. Bye-bye, everyone.